to the 80-20 Baseball Podcast. Strike! The 80-20 Coaching Masterclass, our weekly get-together where coaches go from new to good and good to great. Mastering the fundamentals and the art of coaching.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 80-20 Baseball Podcast, the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Let's get into mastering the key parts of coaching as we leverage the 80-20 principle to become great coaches as fast as possible. We got part 3, our third and final part of the interview with Scott Swartzbaugh. He coaches CEOs. He's a well of information. He understands leadership. He understands how to lead kids, lead teams, lead players to success, and even leading adults to success in the business world. So with that said, let's dive into part 3 of the interview with Scott, and we're going to join up with the interview already in progress, of course, and we're continuing through Scott's top 10 recommendations for coaches, top 10 tips for coaches, leveraging the 80-20 principle as we do it. All right, let's dive in. Gratitude is something that can really help us stay even keel. It can help us as coaches to keep things in perspective and what we're out there for. Even gratitude on a granular level of just, hey, I'm grateful that call went our way, right? Instead of always just seeing the umpire's bad calls go against or the ref's bad call that we see go against us. I think that can keep us even keel too.
And if you're staying in that positive mental state as a coach, they're all looking to you. They can tell you, they can feel it, they can observe it, they can hear it. And if it's negative, that's what they're going to see. So it's our opportunity as coaches to be that positive mentor and a consistent passion. I'll give a couple examples around this, but the next one is when your head tells you not to show up, not to try, or not to commit, and you're already doing that. So you have to reframe, ask yourself, what can I do even better on those days that I'm off? I'm mentally off, I'm physically off. Sometimes your head is playing games with you, right? I didn't sleep well as a coach. I got up halfway through my REM cycle. The kids must have gone to a pizza party and got to bed at 11 o'clock. They came out, they can't even play catch. They're winging balls over each other's heads. They're not in any form of a zone. So that's a chance to create a bit of a reset. And it could be something completely out of your control, right? How do I do simple adjustments and elevate my game to even higher highs, right? So I'll give you a personal example that came to mind, Bo, before we got together. And so I had this coach as a sophomore in high school, and I was a starting 2-guard on varsity. The first week I ever played on varsity in this league, I was player of the week as a sophomore starting varsity in the league. What had happened prior to that was I was at a 2-guard and they moved me to a 3 and didn't start me in the last game of league. Well, this guy, Gary, grabbed me and says, all right, we're going to change the way we're using you. You're too far away from the hoop. You're too athletic for rebounding and getting the ball to the rim to have you playing too far out on the perimeter. So we're going to get you the high post. We're going to start you at the 3. So that way I can go in and out. I can flex. And I was pissed. I was not happy as an athlete. And what he did is he reframed and recalibrated my mindset and made these simple adjustments by moving me into a place where I could be more successful, that elevated my game and take the anger and frustration of why did I not start and let that trash get pushed out and not let that come to the table. And that next game, when they started me, first game of the league, I scored 22 points. I think I had 15 rebounds. And it was because they made these adjustments that allowed me to be the better version of myself, to be even better. Sometimes we think the best athlete has to be at shortstop, second base, and pitcher, right? Sometimes humility and having them play other positions and empower other kids, because that kid could be hurt, he could be sick, moving kids around to frame up where they can perform and do their best. Hey, let's get this guy to first base, right? He seems like that's a good spot for him. We can't always start the same kids, right? And so when you're limiting their growth by putting them in places where they can't grow, then they're going to come up and they're not going to be inspired. Like I love to inspire by mentally saying, hey, we're going to try you at first base. You ready to go? I'm a right fielder. No, you're starting at first today. We've seen your improvement. We like how you're catching the ball at first. We're giving you the opportunity to be better so that it's not the same thing every time. Most of these kids are never going to end up, maybe some end up at college, do the math. Maybe they end up in the pros. The reality is this is a social environment of learning and giving them life skills in order to perform as they move through life, right? This is not about just the sports. This sport is the vehicle for you as a coach to create a learning environment and let them flourish in a positive environment of learning and accountability with respect and responsibility to the team. So that guy, Gary, helped me flip a negative and turn it into a positive as an athlete. And I always have to look at going, okay, take the negative, turn it into a positive. And so that when I show up, I showed up with great determination because it was affirmed that we're going to put you in the best position to perform. So Coach Gary did a tremendous job, worked on my footwork, mentality, walked me through the experience. And sometimes those isolations of certain players, let's take the infielders and do over here, outfielders over here. We're going to work on the pitchers and catchers and throwing to second, whatever. You isolate in sub drills, but you're doing that in hopefully a game live mentality that allows them to own their job and own that opportunity to perform at the highest level and get better than they ever thought. And so that's the opportunity for you to feel good about, all right, that kid continues to grow and I'm going to help him get there. That's your chosen goal as a coach and a mentor, to continue to believe in them and put them in the best position and then hold them accountable to their own goals and do it all in a positive manner. Constantly tune the brain. Oh, I told you that one story about some kids that I coach in the 16s, but if you're tuning the brain constantly and you're evolving them, you're empowering them in the mind, and the body will follow. And I'll tell that quick story that I had shared with you, where I had a team that I was involved with, and the team finished regionals. It happened to be a volleyball team a few years back, and they finished number one and went to nationals as the one seed. But the certain players, what they call middle blocker, quick hitters, were not playing very well, and the whole team asked me to get to them, and I was being more of an advisor than the direct coach for this group. So I said, if everybody asks me to help, I'll gladly help. The players all want me to help, I'll help. But if not, so there's affirmations in that they want your help. You're not stepping in. A lot of times we step into situations where we may not belong, our opinions are not asked for. I say that with great intentions, because a lot of times as athletes and competitive folks, we can over-insert opinions or situations that maybe we don't play. So good awareness skills is my point there, is key. And why I had all three members of that situation. As the story goes, we're heading off to nationals. So I tell the three kids that are playing this position, be at this court at this time, we're going to do a session. And the net of the story is that it was all rhetorical coaching. Hey, what's your job? I'm the centerpiece of the offense and I'm the centerpiece of the defense. Great. And when you're not up in the air blocking or hitting, what are you doing? Well, I'm either covering my hitters or wherever I'm supposed to be. So I'd ask them, what is your job? And they rhetorically knew what the answers were. Okay, then they own it. But if I'm telling them what they have to do, as some of our tendencies as coaches and mentors become, is I'm going to pepper you with the same information and it's going to get better. But if they don't own it and say it, that's a form of a major affirmation, mentally, emotionally, physiologically, that you're attaching yourselves to what your goal and initiative is as a job on the court, on the field, wherever you are, on the ice, if you're playing hockey, is critical to owning that. And the tweaking of these three players was I tuned their brains. I acted as if I was one of the middles. I went through footwork, mental acuity, prepared, and we went through a system for 1 hour. They never touched a volleyball. And they thought they were going to come in and hit balls and do all these drills. I tuned their brains for 1 hour. We went to nationals. The one kid was MVP. We won gold. He was the MVP of the entire tournament at nationals. The other kid was all tournament. The other one was all honorable mention. 1 hour of mental tuning. Now, there was foundational, what I call equity with players. If you don't have equity with a kid, something about them that you've connected, they like you, they trust you, they believe in you as a coach. You don't berate them, but you lift them up. You hold them accountable to their goals and initiatives as an individual contributor on the team, and then also within the overall team aspect. And these kids went off, and they were not playing well. They were in a rut, right? They were in a slump, as we might say. And hitters in volleyball are very much a baseball. They have a batting average. If you're hitting 300 as a hitter, that's good. There's a very like equation. The arm preparation and swing is identical to a baseball throw. You're loading up. They're doing what we call a bow and arrow, right? Arm up, left arm forward, right? There's a lot of pass acuity. A lot of kids played baseball, so it helped us to be able to say, oh, that's the motion. In any event, the opportunity for them to perform was phenomenal. So I'm going to move to another topic, but I wanted to just light that up. The mental connection is an enormous opportunity as a mentor and a coach to make simple concepts, make them actionable, and that they can receive them. They can receive it. And you're affirming what you're helping them with. So that way it's not at them, it's with them and for them in the greater good of the team. Connecting all those things is sometimes a missed opportunity. The next topic is stay humble. There's many teachers all around, your coach, trainers, all types of people, employees, prospects, children, encounter that are brought to teach you something. So your job is to discover the lesson that you might learn. So if you're in a mindset, I already know everything, then you're closed off to growth. If you're in the mindset to discover that there was a lesson that you even, I love observing this coach. I love his demeanor. He keeps it positive. He picks his moments to interact with the kids. He doesn't need to coach them every single time they go out to the plate, and every single time they pick a moment and go, I love what you just did. That was a beautiful play. I love the effort. It didn't turn out positive, but I loved your effort. You're affirming a positive situation. Fun story on the stay humble side. So I coached, hadn't told you this one, Bo, but if you remember a guy named Mike Witt. Mike Witt played for a Catholic school in Anaheim. I'm blanking on it. Good heavens. So
Servite,
thank you. Servite High School. He's in my kids' league. And then ended up being I don't know if he was Hall of Fame, but basically an all-star pitcher for the Angels. Big guy, 6'7", got to know him personally. Our boys were friends. And I met him, and he was the manager for a AA, AAA team, and they asked me to be the third coach. Well, I'm coaching my daughter's 16s team. I'm coaching a 14s team. The 14s teams end up being national champions. But I'm coaching with Mike Witt. And what was awesome about him is a real student of the game, right? We sometimes don't talk about this. A true student of the game. He had a sense of humility that was infectious. He never made it about him, ever. And here's a guy who played at the highest levels on 100-mile-an-hour BBs, in Angel Stadium and beyond. And he just had a very leadership-minded, mentoring attitude that was infectious for the team. So when he did speak, it was to the point and consumable by the kid. And I personally love that approach. But just watching this guy in action, that team won league, went to what they used to call Tournament of Champions, and it's a term in the SoCal leagues. I think we won or lost in the finals of the TOC. So my kid had been on a different team the year before, went to TOC, won it, and then I think this year, that year they lost it. But here I'm coaching with, Mike Witt, as I'm coaching with some other great people at the time, and I'm assistants on both. And it was fascinating to know that here's a guy that had gotten to the highest levels of pro sports in baseball and had a sense of humility that never felt like his ego was present. And I'm going to say that again. There's actually a book that's a great book called Ego is the Enemy. And the premise of the book is anytime ego enters into any situation, it becomes the enemy. Fantastic book. So as we come out as coaches and mentors, and we're staying in a level of humility, but leadership at the same time, the opportunity is really to embrace that so that they sense that it's a learning environment of playing a game, enjoying the journey of that game. You're going to have good days and bad, but watching the level of humility, let the kids play the game, and then you could fine tune things in a respectful way with the kids to help them, but never berate them or show your frustration, your body language, your tonality. So positive tonality, hold them responsible and respectable to you and the team, and keep it fun. There's got to be a smile on your face. You've got to be able to say, hey, that was cool. We just scored 6 runs. That was wild. Okay, here we go. Let's go play some good defense. It's time to turn it on. So humility is a big part of the opportunity to show grace. And once again, a lot of times we might miss that opportunity consistently to be that way. And Mike Witt was a beacon of light for me to see his grace and how he did that. And it helped me affirm whenever I was out coaching elsewhere, stay humility based, stay humble. Great lesson for me.
Ego is the Enemy. Yeah, wonderful book. And I've mentioned on this podcast, I've recommended a daily newsletter email that is sent by the author of that book, Ryan Holiday. And he writes a daily email called The Daily Dad. And I don't always agree with everything that Ryan Holiday says, or even in this newsletter, but it's really great. I read it this morning. Yesterday I was backed up 3 days on it, and I read 3. It's a great newsletter. And yeah, that book is, I think, required reading. It should be required reading in schools. Yeah, Mike Witt, I went to high school in Anaheim. Mike Witt, grew up watching him play. And I actually went to school, grade school, with his nephew. The world is smaller, even so, than what we thought.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Yeah. Last topic, embrace sacrifice. Embrace sacrifice. It's a form of investing in yourself. right? So give yourself the time. You are worth the investment. It's hard to do, but bring it. Will bring you so much more. Open to your mind, your future self. So think of it in terms of you're pulling yourself forward. Let your dreams materialize. They always will if you work with them. So I have a couple coaches. One real quick I wrote down, Bob Kelly popped in my head the other day. And he was the first guy that taught me how to train hard. I was an eighth grader playing soccer and I couldn't juggle, and next thing you know, we're running 2 or 3 miles before practice as hard as we can. We're juggling the ball and we ended up 15 games going 13-0-2. But what he taught me is the sacrifice of conditioning can apply to the mental strength of being on the field, and then the skills that I didn't have that came through because I was at a higher level of performance physically to perform at a higher in techniques and tools on the field. So I couldn't juggle a ball. If you know what juggling a ball is, header, knees, chest, and you keep the ball going, feet. And I went from like maybe 5 touches to 300. I could do 300 in a row. The sacrifice was incredible because I hadn't been pushed like that before. Then all of a sudden the other side of it was, oh, okay, this is what it looks like. And I was a center mid, hockey or soccer as a guy in the middle of the field, and I'd run defense. But seeing that sacrifice and investing in myself was really of what was happening as a 14-year-old. But one of the more interesting ones on embracing sacrifice, I played for an assistant coach at UCLA, a guy named Mike Norman. He did 3 tours in Nam, hand-to-hand combat behind enemy lines as an Army Ranger, 5'10". And I'm trying to figure him out when I walk up to him and getting to know him. He has a jaw that looks like it could cut me in half. He had one of those military jaws like, oh dear, don't going to get in trouble with this guy. Normie, as we called him, was a fantastic coach. And we get to know him. And the funny part of him as an athlete and coaches, he was very humble, had very little to say. You had to drag it out of this guy. I said, did you play here? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, I was a middle blocker. And we thought he was kidding. Like 5'10". And he's like, yeah, I was a middle blocker. He goes, well, I had a really good vertical. And we're like, what? And he goes, you don't want to know because you won't believe it. I usually have to bring pictures of myself because people just go, yeah, right. He had a 48-inch vertical. So half of his body at Pauley Pavilion playing SC or whoever was draping over the net, and you couldn't set the ball anywhere close to the net with Normie around. He's quick off the floor, and he could press his body across the net and roof anybody. And we're like, okay, so he brought the thing the next day, and here he is, middle of Pauley Pavilion, just roofing this guy. It was unbelievable. You just had to stare at this picture. And I had done something because I got a little smug as a 20-year-old or something playing at UCLA and said something, and kind of pissed him off. And I'm like, okay, this guy's going to cut me in half. So back to embracing sacrifice, I realized that even my own actions and predisposed thoughts of this guy were a little too flippant, and it reeled me in, and it made me refocus as an athlete, a sense of respect and responsibility to this gentleman who had had wildly incredible success as an athlete and as a coach. And I needed to reel it in. And I went from in the doghouse to embracing to be the best version of myself. He and I together as an assistant coach had an incredible run, and it completely changed the way I looked at the game and looked at embracing of the opportunity as an athlete. For you coaches, that is your opportunity to embrace and inspire the kids by investing in what you know about them, giving them grace and positivity in the things they do well, helping them figure out how they can get better. It's, their footwork could be they're stepping wrong, they're pushing off the wrong foot, they're dropping their elbow, and they're not throwing towards cutoff man. They're not tuned in. Baseball's tough. They're keeping the kids focused and with purpose. I love that word, right? We have purpose in your position. Know the situation, know what you do. Every one of you matter on the field, regardless of where you are. They all matter. That's why you have a position. So with purpose and passion and preparedness, I love the 3 Ps, purpose, passion, and preparedness in the corporate world, on a baseball field, in any sport. If you can emulate those 3 things, then you're in a mindset of a high likelihood of success because of those 3 things, purpose, passion, and preparedness. If you can repeat things in 3s, it's a great way for the kids to attach themselves and go, hey, love your purpose, be prepared out there, and I love your passion, so get after it. Go get them, Billy. And triggering positivity with phraseology, it's a great way. And then from a sacrificial level, you're giving of yourself so they give back to themselves and the team. There's a give and take. And a lot of times we're giving things in a way that help them attach themselves to that positivity, that higher ground of this passion and preparedness, right? So it's a good mix. And thanks to my coaches, Mike Norman and Bob Kelly, there was different things I learned. The physicality of things created a much greater opportunity for the mental to follow through. And the mental is heavily attached to the physicality, and they're interconnected. Remember, there's going to have great days of that mental, and there's going to be days where they're picking flowers and they're thinking about when they're going to go play video games or be with their friends. And it's your opportunity to keep them in a focus set as best you can and work through those opportunities to embrace that sacrifice so that they're connected to that as an individual and as a team member.
I'll tell you what, this was awesome, Scott. You shared out so much great and helpful information for coaches, and you've been there, you've done that, you've coached, all your kids, you've played at a high level, you've coached, you've had great coaches before you even became a coach to look up to your baseball through and through and your family. What a great message that you had all the way through. Now, to wrap it up, Scott, how would the listeners, most all of the listeners are dads and they're working, they got their own companies, they're working, or they have a job that they go to each day. How do they connect with you? How can they find more about you and what you do on a day-to-day thing?
Thanks for asking, Bo. We do a lot of the same disciplines within the corporate coaching game where, sometimes the manager, i.e. the CEO, we all have blind spots. There's things that we do really, really well. So you can find me through LinkedIn, Scott Swartzbaugh. I consult with the Chris Jennings group, old friend of mine, UCLA pal. And we do corporate coaching, once again, leadership, sales leadership. And it's really a tremendous opportunity for no different than an athlete, finding what you do well, what you don't, and creating repeatable structure for success. A lot of times people in the business world, sales world, it's kind of catch can. So you can overstructure things. Most of the times things are wildly understructured. So creating mindsets and disciplines, techniques, what I like to call the art of conversation, is a tremendous and kind of a lost art. Writing skills and verbal skills are not what they were in the past, 1800s, 1900s, into 2000s, and definitely post-COVID. We've become a very electronic society, and our skill sets have a long way to go on the average. And so I get to listen and hear and watch how emails are written, and I have fun with it because a lot of times you realize that, the silly show, are you smarter than a fifth grader? I'll sometimes say to a CEO, so based on the topic we're on, are we talking at fifth grade, below, or above? Where do we want to go with this? And it's a great way to draw the CEO and VPs into where's their head, where do they think they are, and then where do we start? It's a great opportunity too, to go back to the kids you're coaching. Some kids are wildly athletic, but they're mentally they don't understand the game they're playing, but they can athletically overcompensate. Sometimes they're wildly smart and not athletic at all, but they work hard and they overcome the lack of athleticism with the mental and the effort. Same goes for business. So we look for the same things. We assess things. We really bring a lot of structure, both the mental side, the verbal skills and the written skills, and then pull that into a repeatable structure of what we call success. Everybody wants to be successful, right? So we narrate that into the things that we do. It certainly helps. So we come in as fee-based advisory coaches and do a lot of things I talked about today and pull those into the business world on retainer to help people grow and perform at a much higher level based on the things they do well and the gaps that they need to work on. And we assess and help and coach at those levels.
You're coaching, it's just a different arena, a different field, and it's just as important for a lot of, our livelihoods, how we can support our families. So you're coaching up in those areas, and that is something that is just awesome that you're doing. And I thought it was only fair that you came on, you shared out all this great information, and it's only fair that you share what you're doing, because I think almost every listener here could use what you're doing in that area. And so I'll put your information in the summary for all the listeners so coaches can, go to it.
Sure.
And I've had listeners email me, and he's a firefighter, he's a fireman, and he leads a team of firefighters under him. And he says, I use as much of what we talk about in this podcast for his firefighting, or his job, his day job, that he does even with his baseball team and his kids' team. So if you like what you heard, and I think all of you did, definitely consider that. And I'll put that information for Scott, and you can contact him, reach out to him on that. So, hey, thank you so much, Scott, for coming on, and I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you Friday morning again in our men's group. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Bo. It was great.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. That wraps up the interview with Scott. Hope you all liked it as much as I did. I think at a minimum, it rewired at least part of our coaching mindset so we can be more successful. If you're interested, after listening to Scott share out all this information, taking time out of his day to do this for us, if you're interested in talking business with Scott, I'm going to attach in the show notes Scott's contact information, and you can reach out directly to Scott. He didn't ask me to plug him on this, but it's only fair. And I think if you liked what you heard here, like I did, you can tell his mind is in the right place. He knows what true success looks like, and he's a good person. So I'll put that in the show notes. You can click on that and talk to him about all this other great stuff that we all do to help be better at our day jobs. All right. One of the best ways to help support this podcast, the fastest way to help support the podcast, doesn't cost you anything, just a few minutes, is to leave a review. Typically, you just go to the 80/20 Baseball podcast. You go to the main show page, and it should say something that says leave a review. Even if it's just 3-4 sentences, that can really help support the podcast and would be much appreciated. All right, until next week, y'all take care. Speaking of next week, we got the top 7 coaching posts of the month coming to you next week, loaded with useful, helpful information so we can become a great coach much faster. Until then, let's keep taking care of our health so our foundations are strong so we can be at our best for our families, close friends, our team, our players, our kids. And let's put this information we listened to today into play, and y'all take care. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80/20 Baseball Podcast, the 80/20 Baseball Masterclass. We got this. Now, let's take the field.